Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Sport Management Association YouTube channel. I'm Gavin, and today I'm happy to be here with Alex Gleitman, a 2010 graduate of the Sport Management program here at The Ohio State University. Alex, thank you for being here today, and how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Definitely was happy when you and Dr. Turner reached out about this. I think it's awesome what you guys are doing, and always happy to help the program.
Yeah, this is a fun opportunity for me to be here with Alex because Alex was the first person to write about me as a 16-year-old high school football prospect, and now I get to flip it around and ask Alex some questions. So I kind of want to start off by asking some similar ones you asked me when I was 16. Give me your height, weight, what schools were looking at you, any coaches been in contact, would you consider yourself a lean anywhere?
I'm waiting for Coach Day to call me, man. That's the one I'm holding out for. Right now I'm committed to Michigan State, but if Ohio State offers, I might flip over.
Sounds a little familiar. All right, so started out as a 2009 and 2010 graduate from Ohio State. Tell me about your time here in Columbus.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I did undergrad. I'm from New Jersey, so for me, it's probably not the typical journey of most of the kids at Ohio State. I was in high school, came from a high school where a lot of people did go out of state. Fortunate enough to have that opportunity, and I went on a tour of a bunch of schools. I wanted to go to a big sports school. No disrespect to Rutgers, but A, I didn't want to be 30 minutes from my house, and B, at the time, actually, a few years after the program started, turning around a little bit, but it wasn't like the full experience I was looking for. So went to a bunch of schools, got to Ohio State, was like, I'm going here, and had the time of my life. It was incredible undergrad. And then, had the opportunity to be in the sport management program there, which was also a different, but like unforgettable experience as well. That definitely, shaped the direction of not only my career, but also my life as a whole. So
That's awesome, kind of hearing about how you came out of state and into Ohio. So what does this university mean to you?
honestly, it means everything. Like it truly, like, obviously the classes you take and all that are important, but I think the biggest thing about college is the life experiences you get and the opportunity you have to like grow up. You enter as an 18-year-old boy, you leave as a 22, 23-year-old man. And for me, that's like 1,000% true. Grew up, matured a ton, figured out a lot of like what I liked and what I wanted to do in my career, and a lot of what I didn't want to do. I came in, thinking I wanted to maybe be a sports agent, and then I was like, I want to work in baseball for sure, and do some internships and realize, okay, maybe that's not what I want to do. And then I was like, I want to work in an athletic department and intern there when I was in grad school with Ohio State, and realized that's not what I want to do. But over the course of other experiences, I did figure out some pieces of what I wanted to do, and then on top of that, met my wife at Ohio State. My brother went to Ohio State. My wife's brother went to Ohio State, all after us, all from New Jersey. So it can't even put into words what it means to me and like, how big Ohio State is in all of our lives.
During your time at Ohio State, you mentioned you kind of found out what you liked and didn't like and what you want to do and what you didn't want to do. During that time in the sport management program, did that really help you find out what you wanted to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was undergrad and grad. Dr. Turner was a mentor for me, and him and the entire sport management staff, they just did a great job of, bringing speakers into different classes and things like that, and giving you a peek behind the curtain on, how various fields in sport management are operated and what they really are in real life. Also, a variety of different internship opportunities. And for me, I had the opportunity to intern for the Columbus Clippers. I thought I wanted to work in professional baseball. I realized just that lifestyle wasn't for me, working, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. at the ballpark. If I ever wanted to have a family or anything like that, it just wasn't the lifestyle for me. And so then I was like, okay, I really love college athletics. I love Ohio State. So I was in the sport management grad program. I interned in the development office. Actually, Martin Jarmond kind of ran the ship there, and it was really cool because he was eventually got the Boston College AD job, and then just got hired out in UCLA. So seeing, working for that guy and seeing how good he was, and then seeing how his career grew, that was really cool, just as a side note. But doing that, I just decided that wasn't what I wanted to do either. I liked it, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do for my career. So those experiences helped me decide what I didn't want to do. But like, I love sports, and there was just a lot of things like I really like kind of gravitated towards sport marketing, the classes and just the different experiences. I actually started working for the Lantern just to make some money while I was in grad school. And I was selling ads, and you were paid on all commission, and I was doing really well. Actually, it's funny because one of the professors, or I think she was a doctorate student at the time, in the sport management program, her fiance was the head of the Lantern sales, and she was the one during my interview with sports management grad program. She was the one to actually be like, I think you would actually be really good doing this. And so that she kind of like led me in that direction. And so I loved the advertising piece of it. I loved selling ads, and I loved sports. And I was like, how can I combine those two? And that kind of led me to my first job out of college, which was working in the ad sales group for Turner Sports. So it was really just cool how an experience that I didn't even think had anything to do with my career ended up playing such a huge role. And I don't think anything would have been possible if it wasn't for, the sport management program.
That's awesome to hear. You just mentioned a lot of your experiences through your sport management program time. Do you have a favorite memory that came about during that time?
Oh man, it's tough. I honestly, just like getting to know, like for me, like, I mean, you're obviously the same, like in the sense that like over the 4 years of undergrad, I had like my core group of friends. I was in a fraternity, just like, you're on the football team, and like you just became really close with a group of guys, and that's who you hung out with for 4 years. But like after 4 years, they were all gone. And so for me, it was, my now wife was a year younger, so I still had her. My brother was 2 years younger, so he was on campus. But just being able to build relationships with all these people who came from like, some of them did come from Ohio State, but some of them came from like all these different locations and, different schools and different backgrounds. And so building the bonds with them, and we did some cool football tailgates and just hanging out with them and stuff. That was just like a really great experience. I would also say that I remember Dr. Turner, we did a trip out to Indianapolis with the Sports Management Association. I was actually president. So that was like a cool memory, but we went to the NCAA headquarters, spoke with some alum there. We did a tour of, I forget what it's called now, but it used to be Conseco Fieldhouse, where the Pacers play. So that was just a really cool trip to be able to go out to Indianapolis and have that experience. So I would say those two things are definitely most memorable for me.
Yeah, I really relate to that. My undergrad was in human development, family science, and so when I went over to sport management, it was completely different. I got to meet a whole, group of people, new professors, and it's been really cool. And I really agree with you when you said that was one of your favorite parts. Flipping over to where a lot of people know you from is that's Ohio State recruiting and sports writing. I read something, you just kind of mentioned you being with the Lantern. What inspired you to become a writer?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just passion. I was not a journal. I sports management undergrad and grad school. And so for me, it was just passion. I love recruiting. Since I was probably like in high school, I was like always a big college basketball fan. Growing up on the East Coast, college football wasn't as big as it is in like the Midwest or the South. I was always a big college basketball fan, actually rooted for UNC growing up. So always followed their recruiting. But then, when I got into Ohio State, I started following really closely. Reading guys like Bill Green, and on the old boards and stuff like that. And just got into it, became a nut. It's funny. I actually like remember my sophomore year, I think I interviewed for a position in the Ohio State recruiting office, and I almost got it. But then there was like an offensive lineman who had to take a medical hardship, and they gave him the job as well. It was something I was always passionate about and wanted to do. And so I think it was my junior year. Yeah, almost headed into my senior year. Me and three friends, we started a little blog called dottingtheI.com, and just started, I was kind of like, we each handled a different area. I handled recruiting, and just started writing about it, interviewing kids, just following it. And then that led to, a position with 11 Warriors, which at the time was in its infancy, helped grow that. And then moved from there to 24/7 Sports, then to Rivals, and now with the new site we just started recently called BuckeyeScoop.com, where a bunch of us kind of teamed up and created this site. So it's been a long journey, but for me, it was just the passion fueled it. I've always been like, I would say like a strong writer, and I always enjoyed writing, but I just loved football, recruiting, Ohio State, and that kind of fueled this whole I guess you'd call it almost like side and a half career that I've got going on.
Yeah, you just mentioned how you kind of been with a bunch of different sites now, and at the beginning of this new one, you just started with Buckeye Scoop. How is that transition from site to site?
Yeah, it's good. It's tough. I mean, when I went from dotting the I to 11 Warriors, that was easy. Like, me and my friends were like super hyped around starting our own blog, and then like the three of them all got like summer internships. We wanted to party during the summer, and they like kind of all dropped, and I was like, all right, I guess I'll keep it going. And so I went there, and I was 11 Warriors, and it was really cool to like kind of build something. There was like Bucknuts, and there was a scout side, and there was Rivals, but like this was kind of building something else in the Ohio State marketplace. And so I was there for 5 years, and then I went to 24/7. I mean, just an opportunity to make a little bit more money, get on a bigger platform. Well, actually, it was just Bucknuts at the time. We were independent, and then 24/7 bought them. But that was like, a fairly easy transition again. But I was there for another 5 years. So, I was at like my two core places for a pretty long time. And then, went over to Rivals. I'm off when I had my son early last year, and then went over to Rivals. And then, I expected to be there for a little bit of time, more than I was. But the opportunity at Buckeye Scoop to team up with a bunch of guys who I think is the best collection of Ohio State writers, Tony Gerdeman, Mark Givler, Bill Green, former Ohio State All-American, and Kirk Barton. There's a number of other guys on the site, and that opportunity to create something special in the Ohio State marketplace was just too good to pass up for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you texted me the other day, it popped up Alex Gleitman Bucknuts. That just shows you, how far back you've gone with me. But it's been really cool to watch you just kind of transition from all these sites, and I'm really looking forward to looking into what you guys do with this new one. I think it was recently you started covering your hometown team with Rutgers. How is that?
Yeah, so when I made the move to Rivals, the way to make it work for me was covering both Ohio State and Rutgers. And so, while I've left the Ohio State Rivals site to do Buckeye Scoop, I've been able to stay with Rutgers Rivals site. It's been cool. It's been interesting. I mean, for me, seeing just the different perspectives and different just ways the two schools, Ohio State and Rutgers, go about things. That's been interesting. Even when I've covered Ohio State, I've always, because I live out here in the New York City area, I'm in Hoboken, New Jersey, and I'm from here. I've always had an interest in covering a lot of the prospects out here. When Coach Tressel always, he did a good job recruiting out here in Jersey too, but Coach Meyer kind of took it to another level with the East Coast recruiting, and Coach Days definitely continued that, being an East Coast guy himself. So it's nice to be able to have that crossover and be able to cover guys who both schools are going after. But like, I've always tried to cover, especially the New York City kids who don't always get the exposure, and some of the Jersey guys. So for me, that transition, it wasn't too difficult, covering East Coast guys for Rutgers, because that's mostly who they go after for the most part.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about reading Bill Green when you're in college. What are some other writers that you kind of read or looked up to when you started your writing?
Yeah, I mean, in the Ohio State market, for sure, it was Bill Green. And so like the opportunity to work with him at 24/7 and then now Buckeye Scoop, and kind of have him as a colleague and a mentor. And even, in the past, a guy who I've been competitive against and giving me a little extra juice to up my game. That's been awesome. I wouldn't say anyone else in the Ohio State market per se. Like, I always love Tony's on our site. I've always loved following him. He's a great social media follow for sure. But like guys like Tim May, iconic in the Ohio State market. He's always been awesome. Nationally, there's no one specifically that pops out, but, I've just always loved following these things. All the big national guys, the Bruce Feldmans, the Stuart Mandels of the world, Pete Thamel. He's done a great job with Ohio State stuff. I wouldn't say when I started those guys were like necessarily like idols or anything like that, but I really respect the work that those types of guys do for sure. But I would have to go back to, not just pumping our site, but Bill Green. Like, as I said, when I started, it was like Bill Green on the message boards, like delivering the goods, and that's what got me hooked into this stuff. So.
Yeah, I know I always enjoyed talking to you guys. What would you say some of your strengths are as a writer?
For me, I think it's no matter what you do, whether it's writing, whether it's marketing or business or ad sales, like I do in kind of my full-time career, like it's all about relationship building, especially when you're covering recruiting. You could build that relationship with the player, with the high school coach, with his now, more than ever, like the trainers and all the different groups of, training groups and things like that. Obviously with the different college coaches and people you have, I think, getting those relationships and being able to build that trust is key. I think being a little bit of a younger guy, I'm in my young 30s. So like being able to adapt with the times. I mean, Twitter was not around when I started this stuff, or it was in its infancy. Just being able to figure out how to best like build your brand and promote your content on all the different platforms, I think is a strength. And then like understanding what people want to read and giving it to them, whether that's, in the beginning when it was like long features, like people don't want to read that anymore. They don't have the attention span. So, being able to adapt and give people the best delivery of content, I would say is what I feel like I'm pretty good at. And, working in ad sales and understanding the sales and monetization side of the business for a website has definitely helped me from the writing side, understanding like what types of content I need to be putting out, and vice versa, like understanding what types of content people gravitate toward and whatnot, and how a website works on the back end of the house, I would say, has helped me with the front end of the house as well.
Yeah. So is it hard to remain creative and adapt with all those, moving pieces? And it's always changing, like you mentioned. Is it hard to do that?
As I get older, it's definitely harder. I mean, TikTok's out now, and I think I'm aged past TikTok, but it's like whenever there's a new technology that comes out, I think it's always difficult to stay in the forefront of it, especially when you have less and less time. There's different things like video content is big. I mean, like you're going to be editing this video. Like I have had to learn some things about editing video and all that stuff. And so like, I would say it's definitely difficult, as your hands gets more full with your career, especially for me, this kind of being like a side gig and then having a young kid and, just wanting my own personal time. It definitely gets harder to juggle everything and stay up to speed, but it's a necessity if you want to be successful in this business.
Absolutely. What are some of your favorite memories or moments while writing for Ohio State, Rutgers, or wherever?
There's this one time, Friday Night Lights, where a kid showed up, committed to Michigan State, and earned an Ohio State offer. No, seriously though, that's obviously about you, but that was a big moment. Like I loved covering Friday Night Lights at Ohio State. I know they don't do it anymore, but those were like really cool events. If people watching this aren't familiar, it was a big Ohio State football camp where you couldn't do technically invite only, but they would kind of really only tell the best of the best prospects or guys they wanted to see compete against the best come and do it in the Horseshoe. All the other camps were held at the Woody. And fans could come in the stands and they'd play, music really loud, and it would just be like an awesome environment. Fans could come for free. And so, just being at those events, I always thought that was just super cool. There was always something big that happened, whether it would be you getting your offer and then committing shortly after that. Or I remember a few years back, it was like Chase Young committed at Friday Night Lights. There's a number of different things that happened at those events, and just being able to see the best of the best and seeing the fans engage with it. And that was just like what it was all about. So, those were always super cool. And then, getting to hang out with the fans at those things, people would just come up to you and be like, "Oh, are you Alex Gleitman? Like, whatever, I subscribe to, Bucknuts. Like, can we get a picture?" And I was like, "You want a picture with me?" Like, so that was always just crazy too. But yeah, I would say like those are definitely, the coolest things. And then also just, being able to like go cover you guys, like as a fan and as like an alumnus of the school, like I don't think anything of it anymore. But like you stop to think, like on the field at like the Rutgers Ohio State game last year in New Jersey, and like I'm looking up and I'm just like, I'm like literally like sitting on how many people would like pay like hundreds, thousands of dollars to be in my position right now, and you don't even think anything of it. It's cool to like just kind of stop and take that stuff in to see like some of the access you get and some of the cool experiences you have whether that's going to games or practices or camps or things like that.
Yeah, I remember walking up to the Friday Night Lights camp that year and just thinking, man, you read stuff and you hear stuff from everywhere, but you really have no idea what it is what it was until you got there. And like you said, it was fans were everywhere. It's just a different atmosphere, a different animal. You talked about throughout this time about some previous jobs you've had. Can you give me just a description of your career journey so far and what your responsibilities are in your current role at Fandom?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I worked for the Lantern, loved doing the ad sales piece, loved doing the sports, figured how can I combine those two. Interviewed at a bunch of places out of college, ended up getting an offer I really wanted from Turner Sports Digital. And so ended up doing a couple different jobs there over about 4 years, worked my way up the ladder, got promoted pretty quickly. Basically supporting the ad sales team first as like a client service representative, and then kind of being a sales planner, which is building all the decks and building all the supporting plans, and really just being the support person and kind of like a salesperson in training, if you will. So it was cool to work with a lot of big name clients, but even cooler to work with a lot of big name properties. NCAA.com, the March Madness On Demand product where you can watch all the tournament games on your computer or your app. Like I was there when that thing launched. So that was like pretty cool. I was there when we Turner bought Bleacher Report. So seeing that go from like basically like a collection of like nationwide blogs to like the beast that it is today was really cool. NBA.com at the time, NASCAR.com. We had some MLB stuff because TBS does some of the playoff games. Definitely forgetting, golf, PGA Tour. So working with a lot of different sports properties and basically like figuring out different cool marketing packages to help sell to our clients. That was awesome. From there, I got like my first opportunity to be an actual salesperson at Hearst, which is a massive company and publishing house. I worked in the men's group, mostly with Popular Mechanics. Some people are familiar with that, a little bit older magazine, publication, and website, but also Esquire, Car and Driver, Road and Track were in the portfolio. So did that for a little bit over a year. And then it was really cool, actually. My two worlds collided. As I was getting like all this information over email from 24/7 Sports about how our subscribers were growing and our monthly unique visitors were growing and things like that, I kind of like hit up my boss at the time and I was like, these numbers are real. Like they should have like an ad sales team. And so like he made a call and, it ended up being like perfect timing. Like they were like, actually like, yeah, we had the same idea. We want to create our first ad sales team. And so they hired me to be a part of the first ad sales team in New York, working with the headquarters in Nashville. And that was just really cool to help build a whole organization from scratch. And it was really big for me because I was already writing for 24/7 Sports. I knew it inside and out. So to be able to build like all of our sales material, our pitch decks, really our whole go-to-market strategy on how we were going to market this fast rising sports property was just a really cool experience. And then fast forward like a little bit over a year, and it was awesome news, but 24/7 Sports got bought by CBS Sports. So all of our work definitely paid off. We built up the value, and so I worked at CBS Sports for a little bit, and then funny enough, a bunch of my old bosses at Turner we're now at a company called Fandom, which is a pop culture entertainment site. We actually own a few sites now. So I went over there to work for them, and I've been there now almost 4 years doing ad sales. I'm a senior account executive. And so, we sell partnerships, sponsorships at not only online and social, but also at big events like a New York Comic-Con, a San Diego Comic-Con, and E3. We do a lot of esports stuff because we have the largest Madden and FIFA websites in the world. We have a property called Screen Junkies, which is based on YouTube. So it's been really cool doing this and kind of like being on that journey. I would love to eventually maybe one day get back into sports on the ad sales side of things. So, who knows, maybe Buckeye Scoop blows up and, there's a chance to do something big there. But, it's been really cool kind of getting to this point in the ad sales space.
You mentioned about, writing, keeping up with that, and then, you're rising up in your career. And you also mentioned your growing family. How do you balance all of that?
It's tough, man. That was a big piece of coming back from the birth of my son at the beginning of 2019 is figuring out, do I want to keep doing the writing stuff? How much can I do? Because I was really like, before that, I was really doing like the Bucknuts 24/7 stuff. Like I was technically like doing it on the side, but I was putting in like full-time hours. I was having to write, 40, 50 articles a month, doing like 400 message board posts a month. And if you, do the math on that, you can see how many articles per day is over an article a day. And that was like, that's a lot of work. And I was, I was getting compensated fairly for that, but I just couldn't do that, having a family, needing my own personal time, my ad sales career growing and, getting promoted there and having more responsibility. I just couldn't do it all. So I had to really like take a step back and think of like, okay, like what can I do? What can I give that won't burn me out, and won't, will also like keep me effective. And so I think I've gotten a pretty good balance now, but there's certainly, it's not easy, but I think the guys who are my bosses at Buckeye Scoop, Mark Givler and Kirk Barton, they hired a great staff, 9 guys deep, that are really, because we all know that we have different things going on. Bill Green's semi-retired. He wants to play golf every day. Like he knows that if something breaks, he doesn't have to be the guy who writes that story. And so having that like work-life balance for all of us and knowing that there's someone to back us up is huge. And them just understanding like what my life is huge. There might be a week where like I am just drowning in stuff for Fandom and I can't do a ton on Buckeye Scoop, and they understand that because they know the next week I might be a little bit lighter on the Fandom side and I, might be able to do 3 or 4 extra articles. So, working with those guys, my Fandom, that team is just incredible as far as like understanding work-life balance. And my wife too, I got to give her a ton of credit for dealing with all this stuff. So, it takes a village, but it's definitely not easy.
Yeah. So lastly, kind of wanted to ask, what does quarantine look like for you? I know you mentioned last week that you had a tea time the other day. Have you shaved a couple strokes off your golf game a little bit?
I wish, man. So, out here in New York, New Jersey, we're definitely, we were hit hard. Probably definitely the hardest in the country. A lot of people I know that lived in the city, I lived there for a while. Luckily, I'm in Hoboken, which is a little bit better, but they've all moved out or, back to their parents or renting in the suburbs for now. And a lot of stuff has been really slow to open, especially versus the rest of the country. I remember Ohio opened golf like at least a month or 2 before like New Jersey did. And there's still even like a ton of restrictions. So I wish I could shave a couple more strokes off my game, but I think things are getting better. They just opened up this past Monday, outdoor dining. So I think starting to go into phase 2. Luckily for us, my in-laws have an awesome place down on the beach in the Jersey Shore. So we've been able to head there a little bit and, escape. My little guy's like a toddler, 16 months. He's running around crazy. So we need to give him a little bit of space. But it's a tough time for everyone, but I think things are definitely getting better. And as long as everyone continues to do their part in keeping themselves safe and, being respectful of everyone else, hopefully, it's not 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and, we can continue to keep, forging forward. So.
Absolutely. Well, Alex, for myself and everyone in the sport management program, we really thank you for being here and doing this.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. As I said, always happy to give back. So hit me up whenever.
Sounds good.